Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans, indeed college sports fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Podcast. I'd call it a bonus Tim May podcast. Already had one this week talking about the name, image, and likeness legislation that's about to impact major college sports, not the least of which will be major college football. Ohio State football definitely in that ilk. I followed up and decided to follow up with a conversation with Gene Smith, the athletic director of Ohio State, in his 16th year. As you well know, is agreed to a 4-year contract extension. He and I are about the same age. Good luck on that 4-year contract extension, Gene Smith. I'm really happy in my semi-retirement repose here. But the bottom line is he's still working hard. And the reason I wanted to talk to Gene Smith is we're about a year out from when basically the college sports world almost imploded with COVID, with the rapid spread of COVID-19, the pandemic. And I wanted to speak with him about the way he and his department, especially, and Ohio State in general, handled the situation. As you know, almost every sports team, I think every sports team, ended up having a season of some sort. And no sports at Ohio State were cut, dropped, chopped, whatever word you want to use there. There were some cuts, personnel-wise, some salary cuts to get through the challenge. But the bottom line was Ohio State did weather the storm. As Urban Meyer said way back a year ago, the pandemic was going to judge, was going to suit and going to judge who were the fittest athletic departments in the nation. And you can see the ones that came through it and got through it and survived from the standpoint almost still standing on almost all their legs, and some who did not. And that's just the way it is in sports, just as in life. But the bottom line is I want to talk with him about that. Also, before we got into that, I wanted to have a conversation with him a little bit about the name, image, and likeness impact, as we've talked about, what it's going to mean to Ohio State athletes, how the athletic administration is going to deal with the name, image, and likeness challenge that now athletes, if in fact the legislation passes and is enacted by July 1, that the student athletes will benefit from. And then, as you all know, I mean, he was at least a mentioned candidate for the Pac-12 commissioner job. I'm talking about Gene Smith was. He talks about that and why, in essence, he, for want of another term, took his name out of the hat and stuff and wanted to stay at Ohio State. It's a really interesting answer. But without further ado, I'll let his words speak for themselves. Here's my conversation with Gene Smith. And like as promised, ladies and gentlemen, here's Gene Smith making an encore performance on the Tim May Podcast. And Gene, I'll just get right into it, man. After the year we've all gone through, with the COVID-19 and the situations that happened across the country. Other than that, I mean, why would you sign up for 4 more years to be the Ohio State athletic director?
Because my wife wanted me to. But
oh yeah, been there.
But no, reality is, Tim. I did consider and look at the Pac-12 commissioner position. It never really got serious. I wanted to evaluate professionally what was the best seat for me to be in order to continue to influence intercollegiate athletics and this environment that our student athletes operate in. And I looked at the Pac-12 position from that position, but then I really considered the fact that Ohio State probably is the best seat because I'm close to the coaches, I'm close to the student athletes, and student athlete feedback is important to me. And so as I deal with issues nationally, I can always have their input or at least represent their viewpoints on whatever committee or whatever issue we're dealing with. So looked at it briefly, not very long. I have some great colleagues in that league, and Pat Chung at Washington State, Martin at UCLA, and most people don't know that Scott Barnes, the athletic director from at Oregon State, worked for me at Iowa State. He was my chief fundraiser, and then Jen Cohen and I at Washington are been best friends for forever, and then of course Mike Bone at USC. And Ray Anderson at ASU. I have so many close friends out there, colleagues, and so that also made it intriguing. But at the end of the day, this is the best place, and I have a vision. I want to keep working for it.
Gene, before we get into it, I wanted to talk to you especially about the challenges you basically led the athletic department through. And I know you had input and help from others. But before we get into that, the name, image, and likeness thing that you have, let's face it, the NCAA has not passed legislation yet to okay this. You stepped up with Senator Niraj Antani earlier this week to basically back the bill that he has introduced, the emergency bill that could give Ohio State and other athletes around the state the right to take advantage of their name, image, and likeness, to cash in on it, for want of another term. I think that is a correct term. Right. But you're in other words, you've stepped out there and saying, Ohio State and Ohio is going to do this, if you follow my drift. Was that as much to make a statement towards your colleagues around the country, or was it just, like you said, it's also the right thing to do at this point?
Yeah, it's the right thing to do at this point. And I really want to appreciate Senator Atani's leadership in this space to try and have state legislation. I was hopeful that we'd already have NCAA legislation that would bring some consistency across this country. And I'm probably, 65 to 70% confident that it might pass on June 22nd, but it might not. We do need federal legislation to bring consistency across this country. But for student athletes in Ohio, not just here at The Ohio State University, but all of the universities we serve, those student athletes deserve that opportunity to monetize their name, image, and likeness. In 2001, we had a conversation about NIL. Yeah. And I wish, as administrators, we embraced it and took it on, and it'd be in place by now. And we would have gone through some lessons learned and modified legislation to deal with the new ecosystem. But now we're just starting, and however this ends up, there will be at some point, it'll be chaos until we get to that point.
Yeah.
Where there's consistency across the country, and then we just got to monitor it over the years. It's just like everything else we do. The ecosystem will define itself. We'll have to adjust, be patient, learn what we learn, and make sure our student athletes benefit from this opportunity.
Dude, how much would you have made? I just called you dude. Sorry. My man, how much would you have made name, image, and likeness during your storied career at Notre Dame as a football player?
I probably would have made a nominal fee, because I probably would have been the puppet master behind all the great players. I was that guy. I was a locker room guy, Tim. I was never a starter, but I was, my roommate was Ross Browner, who was, third. He was third in the Heisman Trophy deal, and then he played for the Bengals for a long time. So
yeah,
probably would have created a business plan for him, and all the other players that I was close to, Luther Bradley and all the others. I would have been that puppet master, saying, okay, I need 2% from you, I need 3% from you. I would have been that deal maker.
Look how much you would have made off Rudy. No, I'm just messing.
That's true. I'd probably still be making something off of Rudy.
By the way, Ross Browner, I got to cover him when I was covering the Bengals way back then, man. And he was one of my, he is a very appreciated football player in the history of the NFL, in my opinion. That guy was tough, but you're right. Yeah. But then let's just jump into it, though. Before we move on, you do expect a little bit of chaos from this. Because there has to be. This is something brand new. There are going to be people jumping right out of the chute and stuff. And I know you've talked to Ohio State athletes about this, including the football team. But what is your major caution to them moving into this? Like I had Luke Fedlam on my podcast earlier this week, and attorney real well and stuff. And well, he's really deep into this thing. He has been for a while, but it's pretty much watch who you associate with, right? As much as anything else.
That's it. It's everything we've tried to teach them otherwise.
Yeah.
There's unscrupulous characters out there in our society who will try and take advantage of them in this space, and they have to be more diligent. And the reality is they need to educate themselves and seek advice from people who they trust and know. And who are interested in their betterment and not interested in being a part of the deal. And so we're going to do our best to educate them in that way and try and encourage them to do it the right way, and not so they don't get taken advantage of. And the other piece is make sure they don't overextend themselves.
Yeah.
don't say to a company, I can be at your site 20 times when that's not realistic. And then also to help them understand, I met with one of our teams and I asked how many of them pay their taxes.
Yeah.
None of them raise their hands because none of them do their taxes. And so
Yeah.
at the end of the day, now you have a different deal with your taxes. You have income. Then we had this past year, we had 162 student athletes who were Pell eligible. So they need to be careful that their earnings don't trigger a different status for them relative to their Pell eligibility. So there's so many things we just have to teach them. And that's why I embrace this as an educational opportunity. Everybody's looking at the money. I get it. But I really think that this will help us have the attention of our student athletes because they're going to want to learn.
Yeah.
They're going to want to do it the right way and they're going to learn. So, and also, frankly, I think it's going to help us in the social media space because some of them more biggest opportunities will be in the social media platform. So getting them to make sure they clean up their sites and set their privacy settings the right way and say the right things out on those social media platforms. It's their brand. It's a part of their brand. So yeah. I see a lot of education opportunities.
Yeah, that's what Luke Fedlin pointed out too. Everybody keeps thinking about, well, you get an endorsement deal with a car dealer or a soft drink company or something. But also the other thing is like not just football players, but athletes from other sports. Some of these are pretty good entertainers, singers, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of ways they can exploit this situation if they do it correctly. And hey, real quick, is this going to mean hiring more people in the compliance department? Is it going to be hiring fewer people? I mean, how is it going to impact just the workload administratively for the athletic department?
No, we have a team in place of existing staff members led by Carrie Hoyt, our senior associate athletic director, and she's leading our NIL initiative called The Platform. And so she's doing a great job. And we are entered into a third party arrangement with another company, and they're going to help us. And so we're not adding staff. Fortunately, we have people who picked up the charge on this. And, the reality is we're in Central Ohio. We're in an unbelievable environment with businesses and economic growth. And our student athletes, if they embrace what we teach them, they're in a marketplace where they'll be able to take advantage of it. And that includes our Olympic sports student athletes, many of them on partial scholarships who actually leave in debt. So their motivation will be different than, say, a full ride football player. So I'm really excited about the fact that we got people in the department who are picking it up. And our compliance team is a part of that team.
Yeah, and you talked a while ago about the Pac-12 situation that you at least considered before stepping back. But, Gene, there is no elite major college in a location like Ohio State in the country. It is a unique situation. Yeah, you've got the NHL Blue Jackets, you've got the Columbus Crew. Now that they've gone back to their original name, they flew that trial balloon and it felt like the Hindenburg, didn't it? But I mean, this is a unique setting for student athletes in that regard, right?
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, if you're interested in being in a marketplace that is so diverse like we have, this is the place. I mean, you can find any type of industry that you're interested in, be it artificial intelligence, whatever you're interested in, you can find it here. And it's growing. We have the city itself, but you also have all the suburbs. I mean, there's just so much here. And so I'm excited about it. It's a great place to be. And so I hope our student athletes understand that.
All right, real quick. This is what I want to talk to you about. This time a year ago, you guys, I think you were already working out of your home or your home, correct?
Right.
The world didn't implode in early March, but it probably felt like it a little bit, didn't it? Just what was your first, when it was obvious to you, the Big Ten basketball tournament was canceled. Kevin Warren, I think Ohio State was already over there getting ready to play. But when did it become obvious to you that this is big time real? Like you talked about even last year, you were following this well before it, well before it became apparent to everybody else that this could be a major situation. But what was sort of as you look back on it, the first thing where you gathered your troops, so to speak, and said, we've got to come together on this. We've got to have a plan, et cetera. Put people behind the scenes in a nutshell there.
Yeah, it was a level of chaos at that point in time, Tim, because you're right. We were in Indianapolis. It was March, and actually we had just the night before, I think, or the day morning of, watched Fred Hoiberg, the basketball coach at Nebraska, collapse on the bench.
Yeah.
And it wasn't COVID, but your immediate thought was COVID, right? So it makes it real. So anyway, I was in a room with my colleagues and in a hotel, and we all made the decision to cancel the tournament. And at the same time, those of us who were engaged with the basketball committee and the NCAA were having conversations along the line of the NCAA tournament. So we knew that decision was getting ready to cascade. We had our track team that was competing. I believe it was New Mexico or Oklahoma. I forgot. We had to get them home. Our women's ice hockey team, we had to get home. So there was a moment of chaos for a number of days before we could actually pull our team together and start talking about a comprehensive plan to move forward. I drove home from Indianapolis, and I think that Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember when it was, it's the first time I pulled my executive team together and said, okay, we got to talk about moving forward and what's our communication plan and how do we do things. And we still didn't know. All I knew was we need to come together. We need to start taking care of our athletes. We had international athletes, schools shutting down, and where are they going to go? I mean, there were so many different things that we had to go through. And so we just started doing every day. We were having new Zoom calls. We actually, at that time, we didn't have Zoom. We were doing conference calls, and then we moved into the technology part. And so it was really challenging. Actually, we were having some in-person meetings at that time too, because we didn't know.
Did you sleep much then? I mean, I would think you woke up every day. There was a new challenge, and people can think, well, it's real easy. You just go A, B, C, and D. No, there was no A, B, C, and D. If you remember correctly, I told you early in that you need to be keeping notes for a book or something, because this will be a textbook on how to handle things. I mean, everybody should study it. But was literally every day a new surprise.
That's right. No, that's so true. I mean, it was so true. We didn't know. We were leaning on experts. We were listening to the news. We were talking to our medical people. Our trainers were getting information. And so we didn't know. We had to follow the lead of the university. And fortunately, I'm on the president's cabinet, so I had an opportunity to learn a lot fast around the institutional decisions, so I could cascade that back into our environment. So I was really a sponge, because we didn't understand. And so once we had some understanding, we could start to put some things together. But the most important thing was taking care of our student athletes and then our staff, and making sure everybody was taken care of. And so that's really what we talked about the most, and was making sure everybody began to put themselves in a bubble. Our IT people and video people were starting to come up with all the tools that ultimately we all used. And so all this was happening at the same time. How are we for me, one of the most important things is communication. And my staff will tell you, I probably over communicate. And so to me, I was really driving, how do we make sure we get messages out? How do we learn from each other? How do we make sure morale is good? There were so many things at the beginning, Tim, that yes, I did keep notes, but at the end of the day, it was so much. And then, we're having conference calls with the Big Ten and some NCAA groups, but mostly Big Ten, because, everybody was still trying to figure out what we're going to do competitively, which was nothing. So how does that going to work? And so there's just so many different things, so many moving parts.
Hey, I won't get into the minutia, because we covered that, ad nauseum pretty much, because we didn't have anything else to do, during August, but what give me that one moment that was the most depressing from a news standpoint. Was it when the Big Ten came out with its, we're not going to play till the spring, possibly, or what was that one moment where, you guys are fighting a good fight? Dr. Jim Borchers is on, the kind of leading the way, I think, among his Big Ten brethren, and, your training staff guys are too and stuff. But what was that one moment where you thought, man, we're really going to be defeated by this? I mean, what was there?
Tim, I really, so I had a Zoom call with our coaches, and I literally almost broke down. I had to walk away from the video because I thought I had lost.
Yeah.
This was about counting votes. And so, literally for a number of days, all I'm doing is talking to my colleagues. I'm counting votes, trying to move. This was after the announcement was made that we weren't going to play. It was just trying to move it back to playing. And I'd gotten to a point where I hadn't been there in years, where I thought I had to give up. I thought I had lost. And I had the coaches on the call, and I choked up. I almost couldn't tell them. But then, I'm blessed to have an unbelievable wife who's unreal from a competitive point of view. I mean, most people know she was an Olympic athlete, so competitive as hell. And she kind of pumped me up, along with some of the coaches who called me after that and inspired me to keep going. Ryan Day was one of them, and so I got the fight back in me. And then President Johnson came aboard, and we had a leader who could really fight, and she fought. And so there was a moment in time where I thought it was lost. But we fought back and got it done.
Yeah, when your president though steps up like she did, and you guys were y'all were a power like you should be in the Big Ten at that moment. I know you don't want to take a lot of credit and stuff, y'all don't, but the elite program in the country in the conference sometimes has to lead, right? I mean, I
think my colleagues, the athletic directors were united. And at a point we got there. There were some who were apprehensive and weren't sure themselves because of the environment they were in. We got to keep in mind everybody's environment was different, and so I had to help bring some of my colleagues along. And I think one of the things that helped galvanize all of them was I made a speech, and part of the comment was, it's hard to put a team together that like this one, that truly had an opportunity to trace the dream. And I think they all resonated with that because they all know how hard it is to possibly, to put together a team that has a chance.
Yeah.
And whether we played, 9 or 7 or 11 or 12 games, this team was uniquely qualified to have a chance to chase the dream. And so I had a lot of other things I said around that. And I really think that may have helped galvanize us as ADs. And then it was a matter of, dealing with the data so that the presidents could feel comfortable. And we ultimately got there, but that was a tough time.
Real quick. No, we don't have much time. As you look back on it, is the crowning achievement that y'all persevered? Y'all, I don't believe you've cut a sport yet, right? Am I wrong about that?
Right. No, that's it.
Others immediately went to chopping sports. I mean, I'm like you said, explain to me why that was so important to you to cling to that one way or the other.
Yeah, well, we looked at it. We talked about it.
Sure.
And I met with President Johnson, and she didn't want to go that route, and I agreed with her. And there were so many other things that we ultimately did end up cutting and reducing and around our cost containment measures without touching a student athlete experience.
Yeah.
Well, every student athlete gets that quality experience, just like a football player. I don't care what sport it is. So the teamwork, working with people from all walks of life, learning resiliency like we did during this pandemic. There's so many things they learned. So we didn't want to eliminate those opportunities. So we financially came up with a different plan, and it's worked. And so we really stayed true to that. But I would say that probably the one thing to your earlier part of your question is resiliency.
Yeah.
Our staff, our coaches, our student athletes. That's the mantra. We were patient, but we had resiliency. We never, ever, ever quit. And I'm really proud of them.
Yeah, and several sports stepped up. I mean, and asserted themselves, not the least of whom was the football team, but others won championships, et cetera. As you look back, it was worth it, right? I mean,
no question about it. I will tell you, it's unbelievable metrics. We had 799 student athletes who were scholar athletes, meaning they came out with a 3.0 Q.
Crazy.
We had all 36 teams were over a 3.0. And our APR was the highest. Single and multi-year APR was the highest it's ever been. So our metrics were off the chain. And our women's swim team and men's swim team had the highest national ranking they ever had.
Yeah.
I could just keep going. So there were things that were accomplished that were just phenomenal accomplishments. And so really proud.
And last couple of things. Financially, will that hole always be there? I mean, is there any way, like in college athlete, you can't just go out and, you could start a pop stand somewhere, maybe the Gene Smith name, image, and likeness thing, a bobblehead or something.
A little lemonade on stand.
Yeah. But I mean, you're looking back. I mean, I know you're a press forward kind of fellow, but you're never going to really fill in that crater, are you? I mean, from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, I think so. We're gonna cover it. I mean, it's the year end is not here yet, but we think we're gonna be in that, as opposed to 107 million. We think we're gonna be in that 50 million or off of that by year end, and then we've worked with our university CFO for a deficit recovery plan, and we have a plan. We're gonna recover. I want to wipe that deficit out before my tenure is expired, and it's a long-term deficit recovery plan. So we're not going to try and do it in 1 year by, selling popsicles.
Yeah,
we're going to do it the right way, so I feel good about it, and we'll just work our plan.
Full Ohio Stadium this year. What do you think? I mean, I think it's happened. I think it's going to happen. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, that's part of the deficit recovery plan. But it is no question. I'm of the opinion that we need to do that. I think we have to be a part of trying to encourage people to get vaccinated. But then there's an assumption of risk that every individual has to take.
Yeah.
We cannot hold back those people in our society who have embraced what they feel they need to do in order to be safe. We can't penalize them by not providing them the opportunity to enjoy the things that we ask them to get vaccinated for. And that is to go to concerts, that's to go to games, that's to congregate. And so I think it'd be disingenuous for us to not focus on having a full stadium and having full arenas. I mean, that's why we ask people to get vaccinated. That's why the governor is doing $1 million raffle deal for vaccinations.
Yeah.
Why are we going to do all those things if we're not going to allow those people to enjoy the freedoms that they aspire to enjoy when they've embraced what we've asked them to do? And so I'm passionate about that, and that's my position on it.
Gene, I've told you this last time you were on here. There are two people who are guaranteed to be booed when they're introduced: commissioners of leagues and athletic directors, for some reason. Because you're never making everybody happy, et cetera. But I wanted to ask you this before you go. There are a couple of types of country club members. There's one that wants to get rid of that tree on the 16th hole, that's blocking all the shots. But then there's the other guys, and I put you in this category. You like to be part of the club to work from within if you can, until measures say chop down the tree, but trim the tree is pretty much the first idea. Why is it important? Why has it always been important for you to be I'll call it a member in good standing, someone who will give their input, but you are in the final analysis. You can't just play inter-squad games. You got to play somebody. You got to be a member of the Big Ten. You got to be a member of the NCAA to play for a viable championship, a real thing. Why is that important to you as a person?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, Tim, is respect for people, respect for others. And, I'm a background kind of guy. I really prefer the background. Let my coaches be the leaders, let our student athletes be out front. But I believe that There's such diversity of thought and opinions and ideas, and we need to embrace that. And but then I'm an old school blue collar guy. I grew up in Cleveland. My dad was an electrician. My mom was a nurse, and we just worked. They worked long hours, and I just believe you got to work through things. But the other part of it is, when you have an opportunity to help people be the best that they can be, you just need to do that as opposed to taking the shortcuts. And I'm just not a shortcut guy. I just never have been. Maybe sometimes that gets in my way. But I'm just not a shortcut guy. I just believe we gotta work through things. And if you use the collective intellectual knowledge and experiences of others, you're probably gonna come up with a plan to do that. But when you think that you have all the answers, 99% of the time you're gonna make a mistake. And so I don't know. That's who I am. It's just what I'm all about.
And as you told us on the Zoom call a few weeks ago, you've also got street cred.
There's times I revert back to my east side of Cleveland days, and running from dogs in the neighborhood or avoiding a particular neighborhood because I didn't want to get jumped. But at the end of the day, you don't lose those things. You don't lose your roots, and I think it's important to hold on to those. And so there's times when I have to pull that out of the bag. I did that in August a little bit sometimes, on some of these calls, and and then the other part it does is allow you to continue to relate to some of the young people who are growing up in those environments.
Yeah. Gene Smith, thanks again for joining the Tim May podcast. I hope I didn't take too long, but I always enjoy it. And I always have one more question, as you know, but this time I'm going to put that in the trash can and throw it away. Gene Smith, thank you again, my man.
Take care, Tim.